In this lesson, we're going to be using Photoshop to pull apart our photograph and create an After Effects composition. We have Photoshop open, so let's go ahead and open up our first photograph. And we're going to grab, in our reference files, we're going to grab our skater at Roskilde and open that up. You can see it's the, if you have a preview, it's the skater with the red shirt that's performing an aerial. We'll hit open. And now that we have that in Photoshop, we are going to go to our layers. So open up your layers panel. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that we have a, instead of a background layer, let's just have a normal layer. We can just double click on that background layer. And then we're just going to call this, how about our main layer? And then what we're going to do is we're going to resize this document so that, or we're actually going to resize our canvas. And what we're going to do is make sure that the canvas is the same size as our composition will be in After Effects. And so we're going to use 1280 by 720. And we're going to go to Image, Canvas Size, change that from inches to pixels. And we're going to put in 1280 by 720. And when we hit OK, we're going to get an error or a warning. And it's saying that this canvas size is smaller than it is and some clipping will occur. We're going to go ahead and proceed because since we created this layer, or we turned our background layer into a regular layer, then we can now just move that around. You can see all that information is still there. But we do want to just size this down just a little bit. So let's go to our, we can do a couple of things here. We can free transform, so we can hit edit and go to free transform, or just hit Control T. And that will give you your control handles here. And we can either just grab and just resize this, or we can use up here in the top, we have some properties that we can adjust. If you click this little button right here to maintain the aspect ratio, then you can just click and just drag it up or drag it down to increase or decrease that size. Or we can just come over here and use our handles. And make sure you hold shift though to constrain your aspect ratio and your proportions. So what we're going to do is we're going to have our document just a little bit larger in width than, or the layer a little bit larger in width than our document. So we're at about 65%. We're going to hit enter on our keyboard and that will accept those transformations. Now that we have our layer sized, I want to pull away our skater because we are going to be creating this illusion of the high-speed camera effect. And what we'll do is we'll just take our skater away from the background. And then we're also going to take a look down here at this, at the skater as well. He's on this little layer down here. And then we're going to add some effects. But all we need to do is create a new layer for this Jumbotron skater and then a new layer for our cutaway skater. So let's go ahead and we're going to use our quick selection tool. So this is you might have the magic wand over here. If you click and hold, you can grab this quick selection. And we'll zoom in a little bit. And with the quick selection, you can just click and just drag throughout that skater's body. And you can see how it's picking up even the, all the different colors and just keeping that to just this, this skater's area. It's pretty smart. And so all I did was just drag this out here and it grabbed all the hand. We have the head. We might need to click just a few areas to make sure that we are getting like his shirt over here. And then let's make sure we drag to get his pants. We're going to make sure we get all the rest of his skateboard. And so there might be a couple little spots where you'll need to just kind of zoom in and make sure that we have like all the little edges you can see. Looks like we got most of them. Oh, this little spot right here for his shirt. Click that a couple times just to make sure we got all of that. And then you can zoom out just a little, make sure that he kind of fills the screen. And we're going to hit Q on the keyboard. And that will give us like a quick mask. You can hit it again. So what that kind of pointed out to me was that we didn't get this little arm piece right here. So I'm going to click and make sure we get all those little edges. See if we see anything else. Awesome. All right. So now that we have him selected, let's refine our edge. So let's hit this little button up above. So we still have the dancing ants or the marching ants selection around him. So when we hit refine edge, then we have a couple ways that we can preview this edge. what I like is to see it on black, because then you can see any of these little edge pieces here that you can clean up or smooth out. And what we're going to use, since he has some pretty straight lines, or smooth lines I should say, then we should just smooth it. Instead of using a smart radius, which we'll use later on in the course for another photograph that we'll be pulling apart, we're just going to use our adjust edge right here. So if we just added just a little bit of value to this, I'm just going to add like 2. You can see it really smooth that in. But what would be great is if we could just kind of take that edge and just shift it in just a little bit, because you can see that we have a little bit of sky in his outline. So if we just shift this down, so I'm just going to use my arrow keys and just nudge that down a little bit, about 4%, and then we'll take a look at that. Maybe a little bit more, so we'll bring that down maybe about 7% and let that accept. And so what it's doing is just taking a little bit off the edges here. And so now that we're happy with our selection, then we can output this. So we can output it as a selection or as a new layer. And I'm going to let's click on our, you can also decontaminate the colors. And so what that would be is if the sky were green, and you can see green on the edges, and then you'd click that. But I think he looks great. So we're just going to leave it as output to a new layer, and we're going to hit OK. And so you can see now that we have a new layer for our skateboarder. But one thing that we want to check is that we didn't grab these edges, because sometimes when you create a selection and you output it to a new layer, then you'll get these edges. As you can see, we have the information that was not in our window. So an easy fix here is just to grab your marquee, select our skateboarder, and we're going to just hit Control J and watch what happens. So when you hit Control J, it makes that selection a new layer, and we can just take that main copy and just throw it in the trash. Yes, we want to throw that in the trash. And now we can move him around. You can see that he has no crazy edges that we need to deal with. And so now let's move on to our billboard here. We're just going to make a little selection with our main layer. So we can do the same thing. We can try and use our quick selection, or for this example, all we need to do really just grab our lasso, and we're just going to make a little selection, and we're going to hit Control J. Control J will make a new layer, and we don't have to worry about the edges so much because of the way that this is sitting. We're just going to manipulate it just a little bit. But what I want to do though is hide the layer 1 and layer 2, and we need to paint over for this area. That would probably be the easiest fix. So we'll just grab our paintbrush, and we're just going to use a soft brush. We're going to sample. We're going to sample just this white area. So you can click your eyedropper and sample it, and then go back to our brush. And we're just going to fill in where that skateboarder was, about like that. You might even grab the sky, go ahead and get rid of that. Then when we take a look at our skateboarder, you might want to go ahead and use your eraser, maybe just erase where that blue was. So you can just hit E on the keyboard, about like that. So now we don't have to worry about any edges that won't be lining up. And then what we need to do is get rid of our skateboarder. So we'll zoom out, and we're going to use our lasso tool, and we're just going to select around our skateboarder, and we're going to fill him. But instead of just filling him with a color, I want to fill him with his contents. So I'm going to hit Q, because I messed up down here. I'm going to hit Q. I'm going to grab my brush, and I'm going to fill this area in with white, and that will actually get rid of that mask for this area, or it'll increase the mask is actually what's happening. Then I'm going to hit Q, and I'm going to go to edit, and I'm going to fill, and I'm going to content aware fill, and I'm going to hit OK. And so what happened is that Photoshop looked at its surroundings, and it filled that area in with the other clouds. And so that's a perfect example of how Photoshop can save you a lot of time in just filling things like that. So now we can put our skateboarder back on the scene, and our mini skateboarder, And now our document is ready to be saved out into After Effects. So you can go ahead and save that in your reference files or wherever it is that you have your project. And in our next lesson, we'll be moving on. Make sure you save it as a Photoshop document though. That's very important. And in our next lesson, we're going to be opening up our second photograph and creating a composition with that as well.